to the detractors or the accusers or the people of the other side that would say that Satanists would like to kill animals, sacrifice animals, I would say that they would make ideal human sacrifices.
Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan, the worship of dark forces, whether it's voodoo, juju, whether it's something practiced in the Western world or the Eastern world, whether it's easily defined or not easily defined, the order of the left-hand path, the following of this, the following of that. It is basically the worship of the force of evil as embodied by Satan, Lucifer, the princes of darkness and their legions and so on. In a very simple sense, of course, it goes much more deeply than that. It is a fact. It is a desperately dangerous fact. It does exist. It exists around us today. Satanic ceremonies will be happening in Britain tonight. Very definitely. Ask any priest, ask any member of the forces of law and order, and they will tell you that Satanism as such, it's there, and it has been for thousands of years. Man has worshipped the devil longer than he has worshipped perhaps an established religious figure.
Do you think you're in any danger in mimicking it in front of a camera?
No, that's an interesting question, because I must admit that it did enter our minds when we were performing some of these ceremonies. You see, I am playing, as I told you, a priest. The various ceremonies that are carried out by the priest, in this case myself, and the members of his group or coven, are blasphemous ceremonies, totally blasphemous and totally profane. They have to be. That is to say, they must be profane and blasphemous to be effective. This is part of the ritual and part of the belief of these people, that in order to make any kind of ceremony totally effective, it must be the exact diametrical opposite of the real ceremony. That is to say, if you make the sign of the cross, you do it like that, upside down. If you are going to carry out a satanic ceremony, whether it's a baptism or a particular group of people doing something like trying to raise an elemental or trying to create the perfect situation for an evil spirit or trying to produce evil vibrations and so on, they plug in, so to speak, the force of evil like plugging in on a switchboard with a telephone. In order for this to be effective, it must be carried out, as I've already said, by a consecrated person, i.e. a priest, and it must also be carried out on consecrated ground. Now, in this film, I, as a priest, am carrying out these ceremonies, like baptism, in the name of the Dark Lord, in a real church. Now, obviously, I'm an actor. At least I hope people think I am. And I am therefore an actor playing a part. So are the other people in front of the camera who are taking part in the ceremony with me. We are all acting. I asked the parents of the baby, the real baby that I baptized in this real church in a blasphemous way, if they objected, if it worried them, this 5-week-old baby. And the parents, who are very young, said, no, it doesn't worry us. We are Catholics. Our child will be baptized by a Catholic priest. We will tell him about this, but it doesn't worry us. And the father gave the most sensible reason for this. He said, it's only a film. And if you can think of it in that way, fine. I have a rather vivid imagination, and some of the people who were working with me in this sequence were also discussing this. And we felt a little uneasy. You know, you are saying terrible things, and you are saying it on consecrated ground. But then the other side of you takes over, the logical side, and says, look, we're only actors doing this, you know. We're not doing it for real. We were sort of looking at the roof to see if there was any sign of it falling in on top of us, but nothing happened. I think we were far more worried about dropping the baby, to be quite honest. While we're on that subject, it might be interesting to say, amusing to mention, that the baby certainly got its own back on me. When it came to the actual baptism of the child, I have already told you that the parents didn't object, because I was making the sign of the cross on the child's forehead in supposedly blood, upside down, and baptizing the child into the service of the Dark Lord. And the child, obviously, was getting a bit bored and a bit cold and didn't like being taken away from his parents and held in my arms and then held in somebody else's arms. And it was making a lot of noise. And I started to speak very quietly, and there was complete and total silence, which impressed everybody. And I myself thought, well, you know, it's listening. It was staring at me with rigid concentration. And I suddenly realized why there was this total silence and this rigid concentration. The child was retaliating in the way in which it knew best, all over me, and all over the lady who was holding the child. Well, all I can say is it speaks volumes for our self-control that none of us broke up, because, of course, it was extremely funny.
Why has there been a resurgence of interest in the subject?
I honestly don't know. I've been asked this question all over the world. I've talked to people who are serious professional students of the occult. I've talked to a man who wrote a whole book about the occult in America called The Occult Explosion. I think it's a form of escapism. It's the fact that in this day and age we do live in a somewhat disagreeable world in many respects, as I don't have to even talk about. Everybody knows this is a fact. And people are constantly seeking for a way out, whether it's to gratify their own desires or whether it's to find a way out of their own loneliness, or whether it is looking for power or physical indulgence or whatever you like to call it. I think it's always this question of people looking for a road out, an exit, an escape, some form of safety valve which will help them to blow off steam. They don't realize how dangerous it is to get involved in this respect, because inevitably they start at a lower level and then they get absolutely under the control of the bosses, because the bosses exist. They have the same ranks in the church of evil as they have in the good church. They do. They have ranks in the hierarchy of the priesthood, just as you have bishops and deacons and archbishops and cardinals and so on. You have various ranks and grades, like Magister Templi, the master of the temple, Ipsissimus, the sort of #1 top man. And this is not just occult writing for the sake of writing. This is a fact, and people really believe in this. As a matter of fact, there is a church in Los Angeles called the Church of Satan, which is run by a man called Anton LaVey, who has written 2 books. I'm not sure that he intended to be taken too seriously, otherwise, obviously, if it was true and complete Satanism, it wouldn't be admitted. But he sent me a copy of 2 of his books, because he'd seen a picture I'd done with Sammy Davis Jr., in which I'd played the devil, a very sort of modern, up-to-date devil, Lucifer. The thing was called Poor Devil. The film was called Poor Devil. It was very amusing. It was a comedy. And he sent me a copy of one of these books, which was headed Regi Satanas, which means Satan is king, more or less. And he wrote underneath to Christopher Lee, a fine actor and a perfect devil. And from Anton LaVey, well, I took that as a compliment. I don't think that's intended to be taken too seriously. That is all out in the open. But the real thing is something which I wouldn't be prepared to discuss. I have never attended a ceremony of this kind. I would not even begin to discuss what actually takes place during a black mass, because it is so appallingly blasphemous and so repulsive and so unbelievably foul. Not just a question of hundreds of years of ritual, but what actually happens, what people actually do, what is done to the host and what is done to the cup and so on. Something I wouldn't be prepared to discuss in public. Enough people have written about it. Joris Karl Huysmans wrote about it. Dennis Wheatley has too, of course.
How did you come to play the part of Scaramanga in the James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun?
Can I, just before we get into that, just make a point that, by the way, that what I've been discussing and what I've been telling you about all these terrible things, it does not come from inside knowledge by any manner of means. I don't, as I said, have a private line of any kind which feeds me this sort of information. I know no more about it than anybody else who can read about it in the book.
Some time ago, the wire services and newspapers carried a story out of San Francisco describing the first satanic wedding ceremony ever performed. The pictures showed a nude woman lying on the altar behind the guest, whom you see now, the Reverend Anton LaVey, who is the founder and high priest of the First Church of Satan. Anton LaVey uses as somewhat of a credo this timeless quote: "Remember, evil backwards spells live." Somehow that never occurred to me.
Never occurred to me until one of my disciples brought it forth, and I imagine it's quite true with many of us.
How often do you have to shave your head to make it shiny like a devil?
I have to put Vaseline on it as well to keep it shiny. I shave it once a day. Can I give a plug?
Is that the odor you're giving off now, Vaseline?
No,
You'd have fooled me.
That's musk.
That's musk.
That's the goatee scent you smell.
For sure it's not frankincense and myrrh. I know that. Now, what is this ring you're wearing here? Looks like it's weighing your hand down.
Well, no, it's a magical ring.
It is?
I have little children rub it, make a wish, and it comes true.
Little children come near you?
Of course. Little children and
What kind of a
animals.
wish did that ring ever make come true?
Well, I would say a great many wishes, but we won't go into them.
Now, you call yourself a satanic priest.
Yes.
Is that the opposite of God?
No, because Satan is a god, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are you then, the dirty pope or what?
Oh, I guess you could call me that if you want to say the black pope or the dirty pope or the advocate of, for example, the kingdom of night or darkness. No one's ever come forth so far and spoken up for the devil. Everybody that's made rules and regulations concerning the devil or the devil's work, the devil's activities, have been people that have been very righteous people during crusades, people...
Well, I'm not too righteous, but on the other hand, I think you're a bit of a ding-a-ling. Let's face it, either that or you're selling some kind of a snake oil. You got very shifty little eyes, right? It's very close together, too. They tell a story about you.
Oh, well, yes, of course.
What is the story that you'd like to tell us?
The story is that I think that the devil has been the guy that's kept the church in business for many, many years. Without him and the concept of evil, where would the church be?
Well, where would Notre Dame be if they couldn't play Southern Methodist?
That's
They got to
right.
have opposition. Is that the
That's
point
right.
you make?
They have to have
So
opposition.
you're supplying, what, a loyal opposition?
Well, I'm supplying a much-needed opposition. The word Satan only means adversary, as I said. It's not...
You never use the word devil?
Devils, of course. Devils are God. The original concept of the word devil is taken from a word meaning God.
But this name, Anton LaVey, that's got to be a put-on. That can't be.
No, it's certainly not. When I was a young boy, I was quite embarrassed about what the S stood for in my middle name. Because...
Zandor.
Anybody with a...
S-Z-A-N-D-O-R, right?
Right.
Now, what does that name mean? Does it have any meaning?
Well, it's a very common name in the Balkan countries of Europe, Romania, Hungary. Mm-hmm. It's just like George or Frank would be here.
Now, what country do you come from? Transylvania or what?
Well, not really. My family, part of my family is from Transylvania.
Is it necessary to kill you by driving a stake through your heart, or will just a knock on the head do it?
I will never die.
You won't?
No, of course not. I've made arrangements.
How do you like that? A frozen devil, right? Huh?
That's a good point.
You're going to be frozen.
Now, that's a great thing, I think. Incidentally, this freezing, because I think we all want to live forever. I think basically none of us want to die. We're like little children that are put to bed before we really want to go to bed. And if I hate to sound like Goldwater, but in our hearts, none of us really want to die. We all know that death is something. You don't know how many people are going to come to your funeral. You don't know what your wives, your husbands are going to be doing afterwards. People don't want to die because they don't want to miss anything afterwards. And they're afraid for what they're going to be missing.
So are you saying then that you're going to make arrangements to have yourself frozen?
If it's at all possible. If it's not, I'll make other arrangements.
Of course. What do you mean other arrangements?
Well, I have my
let's
own
take the
theories.
freezing first now. I could just picture this now. About 10 days after you're frozen, some minister is going to tiptoe over and turn off your electricity.
Or bring a blowtorch in.
Yeah. Well, a blowtorch would be make you right at home. What are the other arrangements?
Well, there's another thing. You see, the concept of the devil is a multitude of interpretations. Now, one of the realms of hell, Tartarus, the lowest of all, is supposed to be a very frigid place, like a gigantic refrigerator. This is where Lucifer lives, and there's nothing hot at all about it. On the other hand, the lake of fire that's described in the Bible was described to Eskimos by Christian missionaries at one time, and they, not having enough heat, all wanted to know, how do we get there? And this is why it never has really done too well up there.
Well, look, Dev, you don't mind if I call you Dev.
Dev, call me anything you want, as long as it's not obscene.
Were you ever a religious fellow?
I would say not particularly.
You're a young man.
I'm a religious fellow now, though.
How old are you?
I'm 36.
36. Who ordained you a satanic priest?
I would say probably I received the call. Just as any fundamentalist...
Well, most of us do, but we fight it.
Well, I fight it. This is, of course, the whole principle of my religion, is all of the concepts...
What do you mean you received the call? You mean one day the devil said, go out, Anton LaVey, and give people hell? Huh? Is that what happened?
That's about it. That's about it. Because people like to have a hell of a time, don't they?
Well, of course, there are all kinds of definitions of that.
Well, now...
Now, I don't, I mean, to marry two people without a license in front of a naked babe lying up on an altar. I don't know what that is.
Well, seriously, there are explanations for these things. And how I started was as a result of various reverse forms of therapy. I haven't been a satanic priest all my life, as you probably gathered.
You've probably been an inmate part of your life.
Well, an inmate in possibly a pretty big institution.
Is that where you picked up that yo-yo that hangs around your tie?
That's not a yo-yo. That's the equivalent of a crucifix.
A crucifix? You mean that's your version?
This is not my version. This has been around for a long, long time. It's just a magical symbol symbolizing the inversion or the opposition or the adversary of the concept that is normally supplied.
Are you going to hook up with any paganistic societies?
I don't know. I imagine paganism is just a euphemism for Satanism. People want to get out and run around in the woods without any clothes and all this sort of thing. I don't feel this is necessary.
Well, you thought it was necessary to make that girl take her clothing off for that wedding?
The girl without clothing...
How did you talk her into that? She must be a nut.
Well, of course, she's not. In fact, I might say that most of the people that are in my group are professional people. They're business people. They're people that are from very responsible walks of life.
I heard that marriage is not even legal.
Well, it might not be, but as far as I'm concerned, it is, because unless they had a piece of paper that said that their blood types were all right and that the...
That was it. They had no blood test.
That's right. But if they had gone to take this blood test, if they had spent $2 on this particular little piece of paper that said a civil ceremony was in order, therefore a religious ceremony could be performed, then of course this would be just as legal. I would have married them, incidentally, if they had come to me with that piece of paper. This was requested of me as a religious ceremony.
But you don't have the authority under law to perform a marriage.
Any minister has the authority under law, under the laws of the Constitution.
But you ordained yourself.
Well, where would I go to a theological seminary that would teach Satanism?
We'll be back with a man from down under, and I don't mean Australia, after these words. Stand by. I understand that, what are you doing?
I'm giving a blessing to the audience.
I don't think they appreciate it. They were throwing it back.
Well, they thought it was a curse. Would you like me to show them how the sign of the curse works?
Sign of the curse?
Completely different.
How does it go?
No, not at you people out there in the audience, but this is the difference.
Aim it toward Red China, would you?
This is the sign of the horns. A curse sign, the two fingers extended. This way, spread apart for sort of shotgun blast, you know.
I always
all over
figured if I ever met the devil, he'd have dirty fingernails. Go on.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Where?
Dirty fingernails.
Well, that's because I've been fooling around with your equipment.
Never mind. Don't blame it on the studio. Go on with it.
All right.
So that's the sign of the horn, and then what happens? Is that it?
Well, there are other ones, too.
Yeah, what are the other ones?
The other ones, one of them's the pox sign. That's 3 fingers extended.
A pox on you?
A pox on you. During the Middle Ages, this was
used.
But
You're
originally...
a bad cat.
Well, you have to be bad to be good, don't you?
Is it true that you teach people how to make voodoo dolls and stick pins in them to hurt people?
That's right. I believe that hate is necessary in a controlled way just as much as love is necessary.
But could it really work?
Of course it works. It's been working in primitive societies for a long, long time.
Well, then how come you don't pick out the despots of the world and make dolls like that and stick pins in them so that you want them to win. You want the bad guys to win, right?
Well, I don't say they're necessarily the bad guys or the good guys. It's not up to me, because the only people that I would cast a curse or a spell on would be people individually that would sort of get under my skin.
Why are you staring at me like that?
Because after all, hate should be a personalized thing.
Do you hate a lot?
No, not really. I am a pretty flexible person.
The newspaper said you used to play a calliope in a circus.
I played a calliope. I was a wild animal trainer.
You live with a lion at home, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Now, is that just a publicity
No,
story?
he sleeps with me every night in the bedroom.
How much does he weigh?
500 pounds.
Has he been defanged and declawed?
No.
Have you?
He's got full power. No, not yet.
Are you at all afraid that someday, after you get through this big put-on, that, you know, with your little red yo-yo and your big fat ring and your shiny bald head, that when they do pack you away,
Well, now, wait a
if there's
minute.
any justice, you know, you've got to really get it.
Justice?
You've got to really get it, baby.
Isn't justice sort of a lie most of the time? Isn't the law just
maybe,
tricks,
yeah,
really?
But you see, we're dealing with men, and men make mistakes, but there's somebody made all of us.
Well, they made the laws, too.
Somebody made this world, and someday, if he could get his hands on a cat like you, you could be like horrible example number one.
You mean like...
Do you ever think about it?
You mean like J.C.?
Yes.
Well...
What happens if somebody holds a crucifix up in front of you? Do you melt away?
I don't do this, you know, shrink back and hold my cape up. No. It doesn't bother me because I have no axe to grind with Christianity. I feel that if Christians are good Christians, they want to be Christians, fine, if it's working for them. Same with any other religion. The only thing that I would preach would be that people that aren't successfully enjoying their lives as much as they should might sort of flip the coin over and see what's on the other side.
You want people to just go full bore, full tilt into sin?
No, not full bore, full tilt, because if
now,
they
wait
do...
a minute, now, wait a minute.
Well,
Let me quote
these,
from this
of course,
newspapers
are
what
notorious
now?
for this.
Come on. It says right here, let me see if I can find this part here, where they couldn't wait to go out and commit the 7 deadly sins. I don't see it here, but I remember reading it.
Isn't
right?
that what people get married for, usually?
To commit the 7 deadly sins?
It gives them a piece of paper that says it's all right? Especially the first...
the 7 deadly sins?
Sure. Think about it, really.
Clear your head.
What are the... Do you know what the 7 deadly sins are?
Well, there's pride.
Sloth, pride, that's
Sloth.
right. The girl gets married because then she can go around to all her friends and say, well, I landed him, sort of crow about it.
No girl in her right mind would say that you performed the ceremony.
Well, all right. There's a sloth. That's laziness. Doesn't the couple usually go on a honeymoon? They want to lay around after they've committed one of the other sins?
I believe the term is lie around on the beach or something like that.
I know it's lie around, but I was using another
expression.
All right. We won't go into semantics about this.
Good, we won't.
And gluttony. Don't we all like to eat until we're full? If we didn't, wouldn't there be no need for diets?
No, I don't think so. I don't think people always eat until they're full, or we would all look like balloons.
Well, then, of course, pride would step in, wouldn't it? And take care of that so that we'd thin ourselves down. We'd be sinning then.
Would it be pride, or would it be self-denial?
Self-denial is a sin, I feel, but it's not considered a sin.
Are you planning on training a lot of little devils?
Only those that wish to become little devils.
Are you married?
Oh, yes.
You have any little devils?
Oh, yes, I have 2.
Are you going to raise them as satanic kids?
Certainly, but not to go around chopping people up or sacrificing human beings, just to...
That would be the greatest reward of all if your kid some night would creep in and set fire to you and your lion.
Well, no,
huh?
no.
And then dance around with pitchforks and say, look at Daddy, look at Daddy. Huh? Now, if you sleep with your lion, where does Mrs. Devil sleep?
Well, she sleeps with the lion, too, you see. Not between us, though. The lion's on one side.
Makes for a nice grouping.
I don't believe in separating church and state.
There are some people in the dock who would like to speak to you. We'll be going to the dock and the devil after these words. State your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Jim Jelsma.
Did you drop in for some devil's food cake, or what's on your mind?
No, we're... first of all, how do I address you?
Well, you can call me Mr. Reverend Anton by my first name, whatever.
Well, I'll state the Mr. to begin with. First of all, I'll say one thing. You have a lot of followers, and you're right.
Oh, yes.
You're right about the devil being a god, because the Bible clearly states that the devil is the god of this world, and he's also the prince of the power of the air. So I don't dispute you on this matter at all. My only question...
Are we picking up a new recruit here?
My only question is this question basically about death. Personally, I don't think it's a funny matter, whether you're really sincere in what you believe or whether you are just doing this to gain followers. I mean, it's a pretty serious thing. First of all, everyone dies physically, but you're right. Again, everyone does not die spiritually. And I'd just like to ask you, what do you think is the concept of God? What is your concept of God? What does God do? Is he, in other words, we visualize God as being the ruler of everything that is good and proper. In other words, his attributes are love and his almightiness, omnipotence, omnipresence, and so forth. And of course, we recognize that God has given to this world many wonderful things. Just look at all as far as paintings. and the literature that's inspired by God, the tremendous things that you see in all over the world that God has inspired through literature and music and art. What has the devil given to this world along the lines of what we consider as good and proper and just?
Yeah, what have you done lately?
Well, certainly you're right. The concept of God has given the world much beautiful music, many beautiful works of art, and certainly I feel God exists, but the name for God, of course, is different for many different people, and I feel that God is that force, whatever God one chooses to pray to or to command. In the case of Satanism, rather than pray, I feel whatever God exists should be the God that carries a person along, that carries them through, that makes them a better person, that makes them live a better life, and naturally a more pleasant life. So, and I feel that you have to be kind to yourself, indulgent to yourself, before you know what it's like to be kind to others.
True. Now, you brought up one thing about pride. Now, do you think this is a bad thing?
No, I think pride is a very good thing. Of
You have to
course,
understand, he likes sin, you see.
these things are all euphemisms for, and I feel, rules that are insured to be broken by the church.
Listen, when your wife crawls over that line to say good morning to you, does she refer to you as Beelzebub, or how does she address you?
Depends on what mood she happens to be in.
Is she also a satanic type?
Oh, yes.
She
Yes.
approves of all of this?
Certainly. She wouldn't be around if she didn't.
And how do you make your living?
As a counselor, sorcerer, practicing wizard, shaman, warlock, whatever you wish to call it.
You're also a male witch, a warlock.
Well, a male witch is considered a warlock, but I don't
You
consider
claim to be a witch, then?
a male witch. Certainly,
are?
but not a white witch, not like some of these people that have been on various shows that bend over backwards trying to convince everyone how good they are. They never perform black magic, only white magic. I think this is ridiculous.
Could you make that man disappear out of the dock?
Out of the dock? Why should I want to? I
Well,
could.
because we have somebody else coming up.
Of course I can't make him disappear, because I am naturally cast in the mold of a human being, and I think this
Want
is...
to bet?
It
You
might
look
be...
less human and more Mephistophelian to me.
Thank you, sir.
I call him a devil, he's complimented. Would you state your name, please?
Mandy Tennyson, and I think you asked him what I wanted to know. How do you make your living?
I make my living as any other minister does by the people that come to my congregations, my lecture groups. I do lecture on various occult subjects. It isn't all Satanism. I lecture on voodoo, West Indian magic, African magic, Norse magic, and also try to help people with various problems, enlighten them on these concepts of magic, folklore, and offbeat religions. This is how I got involved in this as a religion.
Does it pay well?
It pays the bills. I'll
Looks
put
like
it
a
that
pretty
way.
cheap suit you're wearing.
It's not even a suit.
No, come to think of it, the jacket doesn't match the trousers.
It's pretty much the same as yours.
I doubt it. I never knew they put
No,
cuffs on burlap bags before. To
Well,
tell you.
no, this isn't...
You're wearing boots, too, aren't
That's
you?
right. These are the same kind of boots that motorcycle cops
Did you come
wear.
here on a
This makes
motorcycle?
me a sadist, too.
Huh? Does it? Are you a sadist also?
Oh, yes.
Are you also a masochist?
Well, a little bit. Well, maybe that's why I'm here.
Any other questions?
Well, I would like to know if this actually substantiates your house, your expenses. You have 2 children. How can you live on the people that support you? They must have to give you an awful lot of money.
Not really, because after all, if a person is conducting themselves in any kind of business, it doesn't have to mean that they're taking $100 or $200 or $500 from each person. My fees are very, I feel, reasonable for my private
Can you
consultations.
picture his kids filling out a form for school? What does your father do? He's a bald-headed devil. Any other questions?
No,
for him?
that's all. Thank you.
That'll hold it. Thank you. Would you step forward, sir, and state your name, please?
Steve Friedman. Reverend, I'm a little curious about that line you say that you sleep with. How can the two of yous, your wife and yourself, be in bed with the lion?
Probably not easy.
Well, the bed is not made for the lion. The lion sleeps next to the bed, at the foot of the bed.
How's that for a watchdog? I thought I had a good with a karate monkey.
Well, doesn't it kind of shake your wife up being so close to the line like that?
No, it's a rather secure feeling. You know, there's never any problem of prowlers or burglars.
Yeah, but they have been known to turn on you, haven't they?
Well, he is chained, so he can only go so far.
Well, listen, our time's all up. I'd like to tell you where to go, but you'd enjoy it.
Oh, that's right.
We'll be back with another guest after these words. Stand by.
Hello, I'm Bob Larson, host of the nationally syndicated talk show Talkback. My concern about Satanism is the result of research conducted to write my book, Satanism, The Seduction of America's Youth. What you're going to see on this video will be revealing, shocking, and for some of you disturbing. But it's important information you need to know. In 1966, a one-time carnival performer named Anton LaVey shaved his head, donned a hooded black robe, conducted a devil-worshipping black mass, and established the Church of Satan. LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible, which ritualized his religion, has sold more than 500,000 copies. Today, Anton LaVey is a recluse who grants no interviews and makes no public pronouncements. The affairs of the Church of Satan are overseen by two people, his daughter, Zeena LaVey, and Mr. Nicholas Schreck, founder of the Werewolf Order of Satanism. Zeena LaVey and Nicholas Schreck are the chief spokespersons for the Church of Satan, and they are the two people you will see me confront during this video. Whether or not you believe in a literal devil, you should be concerned about the plans of LaVey and Schreck to establish a satanically ruled society. This interview was not a debate with my countering the viewpoint put forth by the Church of Satan. The purpose of this video was to divulge information regarding the agenda of the Church of Satan, facts that until now have been cloaked in rumor and contradiction. After seeing this video, I'm sure you will be appalled by the evil teachings of Satanism clearly evident in the statements of LaVey and Schreck. You may wish to use parental discretion for younger children during some parts of this video. And now, the first family of Satanism.
Let's come back to the beginning now for a minute. Let's go back to 1966 when this whole thing got started. The suggestion is that your father hit on a good gimmick. You're always accusing the church of being hypocritical and using gimmicks, but it seems to me that your father hit on a very good gimmick. And then there was a lot of showmanship involved. I mean, nudes on altars and satanic ceremonies. How sincere was the beginning of the church? How sincere?
It was quite sincere. There had to be public attention to pave the way for Satanism to be a recognized and above-board religion, as it had never been before. So there had to be public attention. You don't have a movement without moving.
And the archetype of the devil has always been as a showman.
And he
all
always
musicians,
admitted that.
all artists, anyone who has a creative way of attracting attention has always been accused of having diabolical powers.
Now, but what I find interesting is, although many people like yourself might think that he was only doing it as for gimmick's sake and because he was a good showman, you also complain that he won't come and be on your show.
Yeah.
So now, which is it? Would you rather have him be a good showman and come on your show?
Well, why doesn't he come out of the closet?
He's not in a closet. He's living his life happily.
But he is not, I mean, he is fronting an organization.
Listen, he came out of the closet in 1966 so that everybody else could come out of the closet.
But excuse me, but he is not making his views, his doctrines, his beliefs.
His views and doctrines are available in the Satanic Bible.
He's not making them open to the objective inquiry of the press, of journalists, of anyone. No, he's not. I mean, you are speaking for him, but he does not put himself on the line to defend what he believes.
He's past that point.
He no longer has the need to speak to the media in that fashion, and certainly the Christian media is a dying force.
And he's living his life.
Wait. The Christian media is a dying force?
The Christian media is now going through its last very extravagant death throes. Jim and Tammy Baker,
where do you get these statistics from?
All of the evangelists are slowly falling out of favor. And as we move into the Satanic century, we're going to see Christianity's last gasp.
Well, now hang on. Just, excuse me just a minute, Nicholas. You make some broad sweeping statements that do not have statistical validation. Now, while it is true that certain televangelists have had a marked drop in their audiences, overall, the growth of religious media in America is exploding. Can you quote me any statistics in regards to religious radio stations and religious television stations?
Much more.
Do you know how fast they are growing in this country?
There's much more religious media than ever. That's not what I'm saying.
And I think
I'm saying that's a sign of the death throes of Christianity. You've given up your ideals, and now you're joining the devil's ranks, which is to entertain people. You are now part of the media, which is something that the fictional character you base your religion on, Jesus Christ, would certainly not have condoned.
Well, now
you are now using...
Nicholas, you throw so many, you know, I don't want to interrupt you, I want to be polite, but you throw so many little zingers out that are just factually inaccurate. I do have to call you. You just casually say this fictional character, you completely disregard the historicity of Christ. But let's come back to that.
As most historians would.
Well, that's not entirely accurate, sir. I want to let's get back to the.
Well, it is quite accurate if you want to speak about that.
Let's get back to where the whole thing started. Okay. Let's get some facts straight here, and I'm asking you, Zeena, because the press has kicked these things around. Jane Mansfield. Was Jane Mansfield a follower and/or a lover of your father?
Yes, she was a member of the Church of Satan. I will not discuss my father's private life because I don't think it's anybody's business. But she was definitely a devout follower of the Satanic philosophy.
Well, his private life has been pretty well discussed in a number of notable books on the subject.
Well, that's there for people who wish to
well, if you prefer not to, fine, but I'm trying to get some facts here. The curse. The story of the curse that killed Jane Mansfield, that your father supposedly put on someone else and she happened to be in the car. Any truth to that?
It's published in a number of books and papers also. So do you want me to talk about things
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you. I'm coming straight to the source here.
No, there was no curse.
There was no curse. So she was not decapitated because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time because of your father's curse.
I would say she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, obviously.
But your father did not put a curse at her request?
On Sam Brody, yes, but not on her.
No, but he did put a curse. And because she happened to be in the car with him when he was killed, she got killed too.
Because she ignored Anton LaVey's request that she break communications with Sam Brody, warned her to stay away from her, so she did not do that.
But your father did put a curse on
Sam Brody.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the story straight here. Marilyn Monroe, what was the connection with Marilyn Monroe?
That was an affair that the two of them had when they were both very young and were relatively unknown. It just so happened that both of their lives took off in a direction that, you know, garnered some fame. But at the time that they had this affair, they were both very young, late teens, early 20s.
Sammy Davis Jr. He's been pictured worshiping in one of your father's altars, wearing a pentagram. Was he at a time a follower of the church?
At a time, yes.
Are there any prominent stars today who are followers openly of the Church of Satan, such as these people were back in the 60s?
There are, and some of them we already know of. Some
Who?
of them, well, if you want entertainers, King Diamond is a member of the Church of Satan. He openly admits that. None of these other heavy metal people are.
Right.
And then there are other actors as well.
Because of
for whom? For example, whom?
Well, because of the recent hysteria we've seen, I'm not going to put their
There are people in every field
jeopardy.
of endeavor, in architecture,
Well,
science,
excuse me, but why?
fact.
You see, you blame it on hysteria, but in fact, if they're a follower of Satan, should they not be willing to step forward and say so? I mean...
well, that's what we're embarking on now.
Well, what the 90s are going to see is a massive rise of Satanism. People are going to come out of the shadows and reveal themselves as thoroughgoing Satanists. Because what we're seeing now is the death struggle between the Judeo-Christian idea and archetype and the more ancient Satanic archetype.
Nicholas, for $100, anybody can join the Church of Satan. That's what the membership form says.
And
that's a lifetime membership.
They can join the Church of Satan on that level. However, to become an active member of the Church of Satan requires that you are already doing something to advocate Satanism. Simply by joining, you do not become a Satanist.
So that's just a quick, easy $100 to pocket.
No, it's
well, it is, because I mean, just what do you get for your $100? A little membership card that says, "Hi, I'm a Satanist."
No, Satanism is not like Christianity, a way of gathering sheep together in one place. We feel that the best way to change the world into a satanic arena is by having strong individuals in different areas do their own individual work. So by joining the Church of Satan, you enter into the possibility of going into the higher echelons of the Church of Satan.
But if you join a Christian church, there is some obligatory relationship that you have, some duties and responsibilities to perform.
The Christian
do you
church,
not have any duties? I mean, you pay your $100, you get your card, and that's it? You don't require anything?
If that's all you choose to do. Most Satanists, as most Christians, are not fully committed. Most Christians are not fervent Christians.
And you guys got that problem too.
Everyone has. When you are dealing with human beings, you have the problem of insincerity. How many Christians are truly Christian? I maybe met 5 in my entire life.
Well, if they're not truly Christian, then they're not Christians.
So that just becomes a semantic problem.
Yeah, can you be a Satanist and not truly be a Satanist?
It's a problem of semantics, as I said. You can say you're a Martian. Well, what does that mean? Satanism is a very broad-based word. To be a member of the Church of Satan is another thing. If I say Bob Larson represents Christianity, therefore does Bob Larson represent Jim Jones and Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart and Charles Manson, other people who have called themselves Christians? So you understand the problem. It's a question of semantics and definition.
Okay, let's talk about the church for a minute, because there's so much that I would know and take for granted, and certainly you would know much more and take for granted, that the average person has no understanding of. It is a church. It takes that moniker. It presumes that position. And when we think of a church, we think of weddings, we think of funerals, we think of ceremonies of worship, of its views on everything from medical treatment to
those are all activities that go under the umbrella of the Church of Satan.
Let's find out what goes on in the Church of Satan.
Well, one of the main misconceptions is that the Church of Satan is a physical building where black-robed people come to congregate. The Church of Satan is an idea more than a building. It is a large network of people internationally who are committed to the ideas of Satanism. We don't all get together and have bingo games and raffles like Christian churches do to keep everyone feeling like they're part of one big happy family.
I have to jump in on you now. I don't approve of bingo games
No,
and
I didn't
raffles
say that you did, but you
and
understand.
I don't think that's truly representational of the legitimate activities of Christianity.
Okay then, if you can say that, most of what you are defining as Satanism is not part of what we would define as legitimate Satanism, just as I will give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you are a legitimate Christian and Jim Jones was not a legitimate Christian.
You're a legitimate Satanist.
The Church of Satan represents legitimate Satanism.
And some kid who gets a Slayer album and cuts the head off of a cat is not a legitimate Satanist.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him any more than you would.
All right. Now, let's talk specifically. Marriage. You perform marriages?
Of course.
What is a satanic marriage ceremony like? What do they do?
They
obviously don't wear white.
They could wear white.
They can wear whatever they want to wear.
There is no dogma or constricting.
And there's no obligation.
Well, what do you do? I mean, like witches have a hand fasting ceremony. Do you have something like that?
Well, we encourage people to decide what they want. If they want a particular type of ceremony, then we'll help them write it. But there is no steadfast, hard and solid.
The proper use of black magic is to find out what will work for you personally and devise a ritual that will fulfill your archetypal desires in a way appropriate to you. A ritual that would work for Bob Larson to get what he wants out of the world isn't going to work for the next person.
Excuse me, you said black magic. You just let that roll off your tongue like, hey,
easily.
A black magic ceremony for Satan.
Black magic, and again it's a question of semantics, I would define as the use of will and ritual combined to create change in the world without any restraint on what that change might be. No hypocritical pretending that we are appealing to a higher force.
Well, have you been to a satanic marriage? I mean, have the ceremony?
Sure.
What was it like?
I've conducted them.
You married people?
Sure.
In the name of Satan?
If you want to use that terminology, yeah.
What did they do?
It would be
I mean,
satanic.
Well,
it varies.
What I'm trying to
we've all seen Christian wedding ceremonies,
right.
So we know the philosophical frame of reference in which that occurs, but we don't know philosophically what's happening.
Well, a satanic marriage is usually they're considerably smaller, more intimate, and because you have a gathering of people who are completely for you, and each one is different from the other. We don't have a set rule as to what the marriage will
Unlike
consist
the
of.
Christian church that has an assembly line idea, a certain dogma is read, two people agree to it, you are now part of the Christian community in marriage. We feel that each individual should form a union with whoever they wish to.
But of course, Nicholas, that's because in Christianity there is a prior philosophical commitment as to what marriage represents. And so what I'm saying
marriage
is...
to us, to Satanism,
yes.
In brief, marriage represents what you want it to represent. We believe each individual is entitled to decide what their life should consist of. There is no bond to any supernatural entity.
And even to decide if you even want to be married at all.
Marriage is not mandatory, nor is... Nothing is mandatory.
Would you marry two lesbians?
I personally do not believe that homosexuality is a natural practice any more than you do. And I don't...
Would you marry them if they thought it was and wanted to be? I mean, Anton LaVey in the Satanic Bible certainly condones
they would certainly be able to marry themselves and consider themselves married.
Well, it may sound like an absurd question, but suppose Joe wants to marry his golden retriever. If we're all animals, I mean, can Joe conceivably marry his dog?
Speaking for the Werewolf Order, which is my organization in particular, we do not feel that homosexuality is a healthy or natural or safe or hygienic practice.
But you're contradicting Anton in the Satanic Bible.
No. What I would agree with him in this sense, that I do not prescribe any moral onus against it. What I'm saying is do whatever you want to do, but accept the consequences that come with it. And
well, you're not answering the question about the golden retriever, and I'm not...
No, I don't. I believe bestiality is as repugnant to me as it is to you, but not for moral reasons, but because of natural reasons.
But earlier you said we're all animals. I mean, an animal's an animal.
Well,
so
animals,
what's the difference?
Animals don't breed.
Wouldn't mate with a Siamese cat.
Yeah, only humans.
So neither would a human
only
and
humans who are so neurotic that they break the natural law.
Without getting too intellectual here, you do have some
yes, I have a strong
differentiation.
See, that's something
that in effect you're not willing to call morals, but in effect places you as a human animal on a higher rung of evolution's ladder, giving you certain priorities over what you do to the rest.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I believe that animals should be protected by humans, as it is our duty as the inheritors of the earth to protect the ecology, to protect wildlife, and satanic ecology is forefront on our agenda. We need to protect the earth that we live on and our natural environment.
Let's talk about a worship service. Okay, you have sexual rituals, compassionate rituals, and destructive rituals.
And many more. Those are three.
Well, those are the three main ones Anton talks about.
In
now,
the Satanic Bible.
Zeena, these are the three put forth in the Satanic Bible. Describe them. Destruction ritual. What is a destruction ritual?
Well, we believe in vengeance. We don't believe in turning the other cheek. You keep turning the other cheek and you run out of cheeks. We feel that if you are wronged in some way, that you take it out with the person responsible, whether that's directly or indirectly, whether that's actually going to the person and addressing the problem or the issue specifically, or whether it's working it out through ritual.
May I ask, before you go on, have you never had an experience in your life, I certainly have, where I felt I was wronged by someone else, only as I matured later in life to discover, in fact, that in that circumstance I was the one who was wrong, and it was my own selfish ego that placed upon it the imprimatur of saying I was wrong. But what I'm saying is, if you claim the right to get even with anyone at any time, what if you're wrong? What if you do a destruction ritual?
Well, how do you know that you were wrong?
And what's wrong with your selfish ego? I would think your selfish ego is a healthier gauge of reality than some moral system found in
I would think it's very blinding, because in fact,
by instinct, how could that be blinding?
We're getting back to our animal natures. We are beasts, and we decide from gut instinct whether we have been wronged or not.
Excuse me, you've never done, Zeena, you've never done anything wrong and thought you were right?
Let's back up even further. Maybe if what you were experiencing was some youthful ego thing that you think you were wrong, what about infants that are passed from one relative to another and they're fine, and they get to one person and they just start screaming, and there's something there that's wrong, and an infant can sense it. Is that infant reacting wrong? Is that a wrong reaction? Well, I would say that on a much more simplistic level, that is the way we react. If we instinctively feel that something's not right, we have to go by gut intuition.
What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
What is wrong and right? And in our case, we are making up our reality. We decide what's right and wrong. You are letting the Bible or Jesus Christ or whatever God may be
even
decide.
Common sense. I mean, even leaving God out of it, to suggest that you can make up your own reality, my goodness, that's what they did in Tiananmen Square. That's what they did in Germany in 1933. I mean,
and that's what they're doing in America in
These are examples of people who created their own reality.
Everyone creates their own reality. The thing is, you speak for a consensus of reality which is acceptable. We speak for one which at this point in history is not acceptable. Well, so it's just a question of who manipulates the media, who has the most money to put their reality forth.
But would you pardon me saying that I find a world in which your ability to conjure your own reality as you perceive it to be a very frightening world for people like me, because you see, I'm guided by some codified rules that tell me what is right and wrong. In your world, I'm not so sure I would feel very safe.
Well, you would see that's your problem. You have, in the satanic world of the future, Christian churches will be allowed to continue because they pose no threat to us. We don't need Christianity. Christianity needs us.
Sure.
So we'll let it.
Sure. Tell that to the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. Why, we're not going to put you in gas ovens. We're not going to kill you. We just want you to wear an armband.
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, we just want you.
No. I'm not saying I'm a humanitarian. Don't try to whitewash me.
Hitler created a reality. Was it evil?
Hitler was a masterful black magician. Of course, he created a reality. Was it evil? I'm telling you that I don't believe in good and evil, and nor can anyone decide what is good and evil. It's all based on historical and cultural values. In my point of view, the Christian religion is evil, in quotes, because it is negative.
Nicholas, I'm not a Jewish survivor of Buchenwald sitting here with a number tattooed on my arm. If I were, frankly, I'd be incensed. I'd be outraged that you suggest.
Well, they are incensed and outraged. They're incensed and outraged.
You're not willing to say Hitler was evil?
Absolutely not, because I'm not going to bow down to your level of good and evil. That's so primitive.
Pardon?
I'm telling the human race.
What purpose would that serve? You want us to give you these lines.
I'm telling you, you have to decide for yourself.
No. I'm asking. I'm asking for parrots.
You want rules.
No, you do.
You want rules.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you just a fundamental question of social colloquy in regards to how human beings treat one another.
100 years ago, Napoleon was considered the devil incarnate, the most evil person who ever lived. Now he's forgotten. Everything changes with cultural tides. Morals change with the weather.
Well,
you
now,
can't say something is good or evil. You can only look at human behavior from a realistic perspective.
Well,
But
yes,
if you
yes.
really want to look at what is evil, the book that you have sitting right there is probably the prescription for
The
more
Bible?
evil.
The Holy Bible,
That's right,
and if you can tell me this is untrue,
bloodshed
tell me.
throughout history.
Exactly.
In the name of
more people have
Christianity.
died because of the Christian church in the past 2,000 years of its dominance.
Was the Spanish Inquisition
Well,
evil?
hang on. You got
I'm
off
not saying
Hitler
there's-
here. You sidestepped Hitler.
No, let's talk about Hitler.
Let's
Whatever you want to talk about.
We'll talk about this in a second.
Let's talk about the Bible. Let's
Fine,
talk about
let's-
Hitler. Let's
let's-
talk about everything.
I don't want to misquote you. In
But
fairness
also,
to
I think
you,
it's interesting. Why do we focus so much on Hitler?
Why are you so fascinated with sex and
I think
Hitler?
this is very
I'm not
interesting.
fascinated with sex,
But these
and
are the
I'm not
things that you-
fascinated with Hitler. No, I'm not.
Because
sir.
you keep bringing up
No,
the
no, no, no,
Holocaust
no, no,
and
no.
the
See, these wouldn't
survival.
be
I'm
a-
sorry,
These are juicy
but
topics for you to address.
those types
And
of,
so is Satanism.
of ad hominem arguments really don't make it in a debate. Okay, I mean that's not that's intellectually
Well, what-
dishonest, and you're a brilliant man, and even you know that.
What do you want to get
What
at
I'm
then?
asking
What's the
you-
issue of
well,
our debate?
the issue is, and I'm wanting to be fair to you. I'm not wanting to put words in your mouth or misquote you. You're saying, are you then saying that what Hitler did to 6 million Jews cannot be morally quantified and called evil? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not, nor can any act of any human being or animal be judged good or evil. There is
Do you
no
agree
such
with that,
thing as
Zeena?
good or evil.
Yes, I agree with that, because if you look at every war, no matter whether it was the Third Reich or whether it was the Spanish Inquisition or any war, any movement has always caused bloodshed.
Whoever won
There
the
is
war
always-
decided what evil was.
And then the victors wrote history. So you always have to keep that in mind.
If King George had won the American Revolution, George Washington would be remembered as one of the great evil tyrants of all time. History decides what is good and evil.
But now
So
what
if
we're
Hitler had
seeing-
won?
If Hitler had won, obviously, your school books would say Hitler was good, everything else is evil. It's so relative that why can't the
there's a
human
difference.
race
There's a difference
step
here.
out of this
There's
primitive
6 million
argument of good and evil?
6 million corpses.
What about Stalin
What about
and 10
Stalin
million
and 10
Polish?
million?
Let's talk about-
And
let's
what about
talk
the
about it.
Ukrainians?
Sure.
Why is there
Let's
only
talk about
one?
the Ukrainians.
Why is there only one Holocaust, one evil?
Was Stalin?
What about in El
was
Salvador? There are millions
was
of people
Stalin's
dying right now.
Slaughtering of the Ukrainians through famine a malicious act of evil?
There's no such thing as evil. It was a typical act of a human being. And if you want to look at human history from the day that we came from the primordial swamp that creation began in, what you're calling evil is part of human nature.
That's part of evolution also.
How many? Now,
what
what about the millions of people who were killed in Europe, accused of being witches, children and women burnt at the stake, while crowds of good, pious Christians gathered around and watched them burn for a Sunday
evil.
celebration?
I will call that evil.
I won't call it evil. I'll say it's human nature.
Evil. I will call it evil, and I will take it a step further to say that it was philosophically the antithesis and totally inconsistent with what the Bible teaches.
Well, maybe the problem is...
Now, hang on. What Nazism did to the Jews was philosophically consistent with the occult Aryan ideas of Hitler. So what I'm saying is...
Well, that's what you're deciding, because you're a Christian in 1989. The Christian church rulership in the 1600s would think you were a heretic for saying such things. So all I'm telling you is morality is a relative issue, and nobody can decide what is good and evil.
Is murder relative?
Murder is absolutely relative. When we sent, when I say we, I mean the American government sent our troops to Vietnam to kill people. Was it evil? Were those good murderers? Are there good murderers if they're wearing a soldier's uniform and bad murderers if they're not?
Would you say that to the mother of Sharon Tate?
Yes, I would say that to the mother of Sharon Tate. In fact,
do you want to let Charlie Manson out of prison?
That's a whole other issue.
Do you?
Charles
Do you think
Manson,
he deserves to be let out of prison?
Charles Manson, for one thing, I don't believe is guilty of the crimes he's been accused of. But that's a whole other issue.
You're kidding.
Well, how much do you really know
How much do you know about
these
Charles
things that you're
Manson? How
talking
much
about?
do you know about Hitler?
Well,
how much do you know about
now wait a
anything?
minute. Zeena, Charlie has pretty well made his philosophy known. I mean, he's spoken clearly and openly, and there's no denial on his part of his role in the Tate LaBianca murders, that he sent those people in that house to commit a bloodbath.
Where'd you hear that? I can show you 20 years of quotes.
Where you've heard
where
that.
Are you saying that Charlie Manson is a rational mind? Are you saying this man is not a murderous psychotic? Is that what you're saying?
By your point of view, of course not.
Now, you see, what I find interesting
go ahead.
is my father is now suddenly lumped into these ranks, because all around me I hear now that my father is just like Manson and just like Hitler, and now I'm beginning to question.
No,
you
didn't.
You don't.
Many people
But this is a common opinion, and now I'm beginning to question why. Why is my father so much like Manson, and why is he considered so much like Hitler, and why is he considered so much like even Rasputin, who completely turned the Russia upside down? And now I'm beginning to realize that maybe there are two sides to every story, and maybe if you examine the other sides that you don't hear about, you learn something that is a little more illuminating.
Zeena, I don't find it terribly surprising that there should be some analogies between your father and people like Rasputin. It seems pretty reasonable to me in terms of the ideology that he set forth. It really is a get yours first, don't look out for the other guy, Machiavellian kind of philosophy.
Well, that's right. But also you were referring to other people in history that I was saying you have to consider both sides of every story.
There's
and
another
now,
side to Hitler?
Do you think there's only one side to anything?
Guy killed 6 million people.
And that's all you know, and that's all you have to know.
No, I know much more about Hitler than that, but in terms of determining his moral place in history, I don't have any problem.
Now, we're in the same
Who determines the moral
position.
place? Who determines it? Who has the right to determine what is good and evil?
Well, of course, I would respond from the standpoint of the Christian ethic, but even a humanist sitting in this chair.
I don't like humanists any more than Christians.
You don't like humanists either?
Humanists, you have to understand this. Once and for all, Christians must know Satanism is not humanism. Humanism is based on Christian ethics and ideas. It just doesn't have Christ, but it has the same appalling ideas about equality, love for everybody, indiscriminate love for all living things, and we oppose those ideas.
Altruism, humanitarianism,
Humanism
all that
and
stuff.
Christianity are in bed together. They're the same thing.
Well, the humanists might not appreciate that, but I hear where you're coming from.
Of course they wouldn't.
A white witch
And
or
as
a
far
neo-pagan
as far as I'm concerned, there's Satanism and then there's other people.
Yeah, your father in the satanic rituals really puts out some zingers at the witches who want to be white witches. He says there really is no such thing. A witch is a witch is a witch.
That's right. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Now there's where I do agree with your father. Yes.
I think you would find that you do agree on a lot of principles with the satanic philosophy if you clearly understood and looked at it. We are saying that the act
well, I
of
don't know if I'd carry that
in
far.
the sense that the act of manipulating and using the will and using ritual to create change is, by any definition, satanic. And anyone who does that is at least an ipso facto Satanist. So these witches that say they're good witches, white witches, nice witches, are as hypocritical as a Christian to me.
Your father also says in the Satanic Witch, quote, of psychics who say, God gave me the gift, these people are playing the devil's game but refusing to use the devil's name.
Well, that's right. Wouldn't you consider any form of divination or faith healing or tarot
divination
reading
is biblically forbidden. I would consider it to be satanic.
So we would say that anything that would fall under that category would be considered satanic. And it's not just us. I mean, this has been throughout history. And predating Christianity, there have always been those who have veered from the mainstream, whatever that mainstream was, who have gone out in the wilderness and built shacks to live in to be away from the mainstream and live their own lives the way they feel they ought to.
Well, the one thing I can say, you Satanists are certainly more honest than most witches when it comes to acknowledging the authenticity, the reality of what you're doing.
We're not, as I was saying, you might not like what we have to say, but we are honest. I mean, we don't claim to be anything that we aren't.
Well, speaking of honesty, before we get off Charlie Manson, do you want to talk about what happened August 8, 1988 in San Francisco?
Well, I wrote a book called The Manson File, and I've interviewed Charles Manson.
I want to talk about the ritual you held in the theater.
Yeah, Nicholas coordinated that.
Yeah. And when the movie showed...
Let me explain what happened. The Other Side of Madness, a film that was made in 1970, an exploitation film, was shown. And of course, as everyone has reported in the national media, the audience cheered during the murder sequence.
Well, this is a bloody murder sequence. I mean, this was when Sharon Tate's body is slit open and her child, her unborn child, is removed. And
no, that didn't happen, but that's a fine point. But yes, it was a bloody murder.
The audience cheered.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas,
have you been to a Friday the 13th movie?
Unfortunately, but yeah, Nicholas, you're sitting there so calmly.
What do you want me to do? Cry? What do you want me to do? Have remorse and break down in tears?
This is what I find interesting.
What is the proper reaction
from a Christian?
Christian
You won't say that Hitler is evil. You sit there calmly. You want us...
What do you want? What's the right thing to do from the Christian point of view? Should I moan and whine about it?
Isn't this what you expect
We're looking
of
at
us?
human nature. If you can't accept it, that's your problem. I can.
Murder is always part of human nature.
Is it wrong? Is it wrong? Is it wrong to murder?
What is wrong?
Are you going to change it?
Is it wrong to murder?
Zeena,
is it wrong to murder?
As it says in the Satanic Bible, can you love the blood-splashed jaws that rend you limb from limb? Is that wrong? Can you love and feel...
You haven't answered me.
I am answering you.
Is it wrong to murder?
Depends on the circumstances.
No, you answer the question. Is it wrong to murder?
What is wrong? Murder is part of life.
We're telling you, we don't believe in good, evil, right, wrong dichotomy. If I come at you and you kill me in self-defense, is it wrong? Should you sacrifice yourself?
No, wait a minute.
Murder can't be.
That's not murder.
Murder is no more wrong. Well, there, you're deciding.
Murder is no more wrong than what?
You're deciding what murder is.
What is it then? Define everything if you want to debate it clearly.
There always has
Zeena, we've got
been
6,000 years of human history to define what murder is.
That's right. So how are we
Killing
going to
is a part of animal behavior. Humans do it more than others.
I don't really believe that I would need to worry about walking down a dark alley and being followed by either of you with a gun in your pocket. But what you have just said, let me finish. What you have just said, articulated to the masses, particularly in a dysfunctional society where people are filled with all types of anger and rage because of past abuses, what you're really doing, I think, is potentially lighting a fuse. I'm not worried that you're going to pull a gun out of your pocket and shoot me in front of these cameras, but I don't know that somebody else might not do that because of what you've said. You're not willing to condemn murder.
Let me answer your questions in 3 points. The masses. We have no regard for the masses. Satanism is a religion for the elite. It is a religion for leaders. It's a religion for competent people. It's not a religion for anyone who wants to be a Satanist. We don't say welcome to the club.
The homeless, the handicapped, those with multiple sclerosis
I don't want
the
homeless, the handicapped.
The people in Mother Teresa's home for the dying and the destitute, they need not apply.
I don't want them. You've taken that on your shoulders. That's your job. You're doing a great job with the homeless. You help everyone. We're helping those who help themselves, as it says in your Bible. And you can take the weak.
No, it doesn't say that in the Bible.
You can take the decrepit. You can take people who can't help themselves. We don't want them. It's simple. It's very simple.
The homeless you don't want to shelter?
No, I don't want to shelter people who can't take care of themselves. Why can't they?
You shelter the hungry, the starving, you don't want to feed? Zeena, go ahead, Zeena. What were you saying?
That produces more of the same. There has to be some change. If you look at the animal kingdom, how is the animal kingdom able to survive. There is no such thing as homeless.
Back to social Darwinism again. In the animal kingdom, you preserve what is strong.
Hang on.
You give more food to the stronger animal.
Until humans
you don't feed the weaker one.
I'm trying to...
There's no welfare in the animal world.
I'm trying to remain as academically detached as I possibly can.
It's not an academically detached question.
Is so absolutely disgustingly outrageous. Now,
and
just
to
wait,
me,
just wait a minute. Let me.
To me, it's disgustingly outrageous
Zeena,
that you would help these weak people who are draining our resources, who are causing so many problems. We could be doing positive things in the world.
Zeena, I want to ask
these weaklings are taking away all of our energy and
that's,
resources. And you've decided to help them. That's disgusting to me.
You've never been to a refugee camp.
Why would I possibly want to go to a refugee camp?
Zeena, I've been
You have
there.
this masochistic love for
She's
weakness.
And what do you think that'll gain you?
Because women have more sensitive natures.
Soft.
I just want to make sure it isn't this firm resolve of this man who's over.
If you think that you're going to get a soft reaction from me because I'm a woman, then you won't.
Not. If you were in an Ethiopian famine camp,
what would I be doing there?
Isn't that the problem of the Ethiopian government, to take care of their own people? Why should we be taking care of them?
No, I tell you what it's the problem of. It's the problem of a communist totalitarian ideology in the Mengistu government that put those people in the place. A philosophy, sir, a philosophy of dialectical materialism, a communist me-first philosophy that is not far from what you said.
See,
now, just
okay,
wait.
Let's put it back on an academic level.
No, let's get back to the refugee camp.
Okay, now...
I want to ask Zeena. Zeena, you don't want to feed starving people. You want them to die. That's what you're telling me.
No, I like your salesman technique of putting words in people's mouth.
Then you speak for yourself.
Did I ever say I want them to die? I'm saying, why do they exist in the first place?
Would you feed them?
Why would they be allowed to
Would you
exist?
raise money? Would you do what you could to collect the resources to feed them?
Would a wolf raise money to collect resources
for the whelps of the litter?
A monkey in the tree?
Just yes or no, would you?
I'm using analogies. No, of course I wouldn't. If I did that, wouldn't they become more and more dependent on me and less dependent on themselves?
No, not necessarily.
Why is that?
Well, that hasn't been proven yet.
No, not necessarily.
Well, if you look at the welfare state we have and the people who are on welfare,
what are they doing to improve their lot? Nothing.
There are generations of welfare recipients.
I understand that.
It's not like just a temporary thing.
No one's defending welfare.
Well, but it's all the same concept.
But we're talking about people. No. We're not talking about either lazy people or incompetent people.
Incompetent people.
No.
Yes, we are.
Sir.
The Ethiopian government is incompetent.
But the people who suffer the starvation
Why do we have a responsibility to help them unless we believe this nonsense in the Bible?
Because
if we're realists, we don't have any.
Because they're human beings, because they feel pain, because they suffer, because they hurt. Does not the hurt and pain
that isn't enough reason
does not the hurt and suffering of another human being at all
if the human being is worthy of my attention, I love people who are worthy of my love. That's very few.
And what you're saying is
people who are strong, I admire them, I'll help them. I won't help people who are weak.
And what you're saying is we have to take the responsibility of other people's actions upon ourselves when we've done nothing, absolutely nothing, to have that result. We didn't do anything to
Does that
promote.
Matter? They hurt. I mean, they're in pain. Does it matter? Does it matter? They hurt. I mean, you hurt. You call yourself an animal, but you hurt. You cut your finger. You bleed. You trip and fall and break your leg.
Where's the social agency that helps hurt Satanists? It doesn't exist. We help ourselves. And we encourage the same kind of self-discipline.
Well, you go to the
fortitude.
same hospitals I can
and
go
let me
to.
tell you something. When I go to a hospital, they see I'm dressed in black. They look at what they call occult symbolism, and they say, oh, you're a Satanist. I get treated last. That's because
you've chosen to wear the black.
And I'm proud of it. I'm not complaining. I'm saying,
why don't they
look
say,
at the reality of the
you're
world.
wearing a camel hair blazer. You're a Christian. Why should we?
I'm not asking for help.
I wouldn't treat you last.
Okay, but I'm telling you that's the way the world is. We don't look for help. Why should we give help to others?
This is, Zeena, this is your father's book, the Satanic Bible. I mean, this is it. This is the diatribe of the devil that has brought together thousands of people in your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
I dip my forefinger in the watery blood of your impotent, mad Redeemer and write over his thorn-torn brow, the true Prince of Evil.
Isn't that poetic?
Do you believe that, Zeena?
And aren't you taking it a bit out of context?
I'm reading it. I mean, I'm reading it.
Well,
okay.
isn't
Hand me that
Jesus...
Holy Bible and I'll read you something too.
Zeena, you know what I'm reading. I mean, you know the book. It's page 30
by our
right here.
standard, Jesus is the true Prince of Evil.
Will you let me read something from my own book?
Well, let me read it first,
Oh,
okay?
and why is that?
You don't want to... I'm reading...
Why can't I choose things to read as you would choose things from your book carefully
because
to
I'm
read?
the person conducting the interview right now.
Well, maybe we should interview you.
Survival of the fittest.
I gaze into the glassy eye of your fearsome Jehovah.
Right.
I pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull.
Right.
Did you know who wrote that?
You tell me.
Do you know who Ragnar
I don't
Redbeard is?
Who?
Ragnar Redbeard?
No, yes, Redbeard, yes. He wrote this. Well, your father's re-quoted it here.
Okay.
Whatever the case. Now, this is violent. This is abusive. It is...
To Jehovah?
It's insulting, but beyond the insulting part of it, do you not find any reprehensibility in using this kind of language? Mind you, I don't believe that Buddha is God. I don't believe that Muhammad was a prophet. But I would never write something like this about Muhammad or Buddha.
That's because you feel like you have to please everyone.
No, because I would have some feelings of sensibility. I mean, you don't feel that there's any inciting of any violent rage in people in this type of language?
Obviously there is.
Of course
I'm asking Zeena, do you?
Of course there is.
Oh, you do believe there is the inciting?
There's the inciting of some realization. I wouldn't say of a violent rage. There's the inciting, what I've heard anyway, that people read that and they say, yes, that's the way I've felt all my life.
All right, I want to go through the 9 satanic statements, and I'm going to ask each of you alternately, if you will, to elaborate on them so that there is no misunderstanding.
Should be pretty self-explanatory, but...
Unlike the Christian Bible, the Satanic Bible speaks for itself. It requires no scholars to have councils of Trent to decide what this word meant or that word.
I wouldn't say that the Bible does either, but let's get to the 9 satanic statements, okay? Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Zeena?
Isn't that self-explanatory? What is indulgence? That you have to be good to yourself before you can adequately be good to others? Is that evil? Is that wrong?
Are there any limits on that indulgence?
There's another section in the Satanic Bible that differentiates indulgence from compulsion.
Okay.
Maybe you'd
and
like
self-destruction.
Would you not, let's suppose that a pedophile's indulgence were the molestation of children. Would you place that under this particular heading here of the first satanic statement, if that's his indulgence?
It's clearly stated in there how we feel about children and animals, and you know it.
I'm asking you.
It says in the Satanic Bible that we revere children and animals above all things.
So there are limitations on the indulgence.
Of course. There are limitations imposed by your own self-discipline and fortitude, not because you believe what you read from God. That's a very primitive and silly way to go about living. We live because we know what is right for us.
You know.
Mm-hmm. And to us, as it says in this...
You've constructed your own individual reality.
And I think it works a hell of a lot better than the Christian one.
Okay. Well, since you talk so much, I'm going to come back to you for number 2. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. I think that does need some explanation. What do you mean?
I really don't see how it does need explanation.
What is vital existence?
You don't know what vital existence is?
I'm asking you.
Our life here and now, living for, as I've said, all of the earthly and carnal pleasures. What is a spiritual pipe dream? Looking to some external deity or source for your answers. If something horrible happens to you, you just pass it off and say it's God's will. I'd call that a spiritual pipe dream.
Okay. Nicholas, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
Look at the world as it really is. Don't delude yourself into thinking it's a way that it is not by calling upon holy cant and scripture as your guide to life. Let's look at the real world, look at the human condition as it exists right here and now.
Okay. Number 4. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Zeena?
Well, I already explained that too, insofar as turning the other cheek. Kindness, if you're kind to me, then obviously I will be kind to you. We treat people as they treat us. If someone's going to be rude to us or treat us inappropriately, then they have to expect that in return. We won't waste our kindness on what we would consider ingrates, and that is being treated with disrespect or rudeness.
Number 5. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. And let me flip over here to page 33 and also quote in companion to that, quote, hate your enemies with a whole heart. If a man smites you on one cheek, smash him on the other. He who turns the other cheek is a cowardly dog.
Doesn't that speak for itself?
Yeah.
What's your point?
What would you do?
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you. These are your beliefs.
Right. Boulevard and you are attacked by a gang of drug dealers for no apparent reason. What would you do? Would you bow down to them and say, "I'll pray for you"? Or would you try to do something to survive?
Well, you see, I don't. You're asking. Do you want me to answer the question?
No, you asked me
I'll be happy to answer the question.
So.
You see, I most certainly, if my life were endangered by someone who murderously or violently were attacking me. Now, some Christians would differ on this. Some would say kneel and pray. I'm not one who would kneel and pray. I don't run 5 miles a morning for nothing. I'd run. I'd get out of there as fast as I could or fight for my life. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about vengeance and revenge.
If you wrong me, however you wrong me, I will give you that same wrong back.
But if someone is physically striking you with their fist or hitting you with a steel rod, there is no question in anyone's mind you're being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But in the abstract, and this is what we get back to earlier, it seems that you reserve the right always to determine who is the wronged party by your natural brute instincts.
Yes,
and what I'm
do.
saying
That's right.
is that the Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful and wicked and who can know it, and common sense tells us that we all have been mistaken at some point in our lives, assuming that we were the wronged one, when in fact we may have been the person hurting someone else.
The Bible teaches us to hate our own instincts. The Bible is a guidebook to how not to survive. The hero of the Christian religion is someone who willingly sacrificed themselves. Now, to me, someone who willingly dies on a cross and thinks that's a victory is a neurotic person. I don't worship such a God. So if you want to sacrifice yourself, go ahead. We want to live and survive, and you live by returning a wrong back to the person. It's very simple.
And I think that's the irony, too, of all the accusations of our sacrifices, whether they're children or animals or whatever. The whole concept of sacrifice is a Christian concept. Because we don't believe in any anthropomorphic deity, there's no need to sacrifice anything for anything.
Well, we'll get to that. I'd like to come back to that in a moment if I can, please. And if I forget, you please bring it up, all right? I want to get through these statements here. Number 6, Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. Zeena?
A psychic vampire is someone who drains you of your vital energy, someone who is constantly looking to you for their support and for their energy. Responsibility to the responsible means if you demonstrate that you have a certain amount of responsibility, you will gain that much more responsibility. Your actions are rewarded by what you achieve or what you acquire, rather than being siphoned off to someone who hasn't deserved them.
You know, Zeena, before there was any Nobel Prize for Mother Teresa, and really before most anyone knew who she was, I visited her home for the destitute and dying in Calcutta, and I saw the poor people laying there. in the throes of death. I saw her comforting them, touching them, giving them what food and water they needed. Those, by your definition, were psychic vampires because they could give nothing back.
And you don't think Mother Teresa had some ulterior motive
No.
that she wanted these people to...
I really don't.
You don't think she wanted them to see her point of view?
No. As a matter of fact,
No,
these
I don't
people
think
could
she
not.
did,
And I don't think.
actually.
As a matter of fact,
Because
speaking
most missions or missionaries want to convert people. They want people to see
save
their...
souls. Isn't that what Christianity
that's
is
a
designed to
presumption
do?
I think that you people have made, but
Well,
you're
I think
you're
it goes
talking,
deeper
I
than
think
that.
you've
I
made
think-
that presumption, but I think I've visited more
I
mission
think
compounds. Let me
Christ-
finish.
okay.
I think I've visited more mission compounds around this world than you have. And I remember being in a Bangladesh refugee camp some years ago during that time of bloody war. And I saw a Salvation Army officer standing by the bedside of a woman who had walked 100 miles just to get there to escape the fighting, and she was dying. He could not speak her language. She had moments to live, and I said to him, "You cannot convert her. You know that, don't you?" He said, "Yes, I know that." I said, "Why are you doing it?" He said, "Because I feel it is necessary to offer her a few moments of tenderness and comfort in the last minutes of her life." He had nothing to gain by it.
Well,
Now she was
Let me say
she
something.
was a psychic vampire by your definition.
Underneath the whole Christian theology and the whole organized structure of Christian dogma is what I feel is a masochistic, almost love and wallowing in despair and death. Christians love nothing more than to see suffering so they can go and whine and moan over it and help people and feel how good they are that they're helping people. It's a very morbid religion.
Believe that?
You worship a God who's nailed and bleeding to a cross. Everything in the Bible drips with morbidity and death.
Flesh and drink his blood.
And yet you
There's a
accuse
lot
us of being morbid. If you want to be around dying and sick people all the time, then you have every right to, but we are not obliged to help these people.
And shouldn't that be a choice? Shouldn't that be I thought this was a free country. Shouldn't that be a personal choice from one individual to the next? Certainly there are going to be people who derive pleasure from doing that. And who are you to say that there are going to be people who don't want to do that? Who are you to say that that's wrong?
Maybe it is a greater evil, when all is said and done, to keep millions of people alive who are not ever going to be productive, who are going to drain all of our resources and create a stagnant world.
But to comfort them in the hours of their death, to offer an act of human kindness.
Well,
that's why there's people like you. You don't want us there.
You want us to be like that as well?
You go hug them. I don't want to.
Well, if I were that dying person and you were standing over my body, yes, I would want you to be like that. If you were dying...
Just by being a human being, you don't deserve my love and respect.
Pain?
Of course. And to those I love that suffer pain, I will comfort those who I like, those who I favor. I'm not everybody's friend.
Well, I'm sure you, Zeena, heard the story from the Bible of the Good Samaritan. Are you familiar with that story?
Right.
Do you know what it's about?
To argue this point is just going round and round.
No,
because,
it is an important arguable point.
Your main concern in Christianity is to help the weak. Christianity was designed as a religion for slaves, after all. Historically, if there is any truth to it, the first followers of Christianity were slaves in Judea. Now, is that not true?
No, that is not true.
Who were the first followers of Christianity?
In fact, the first followers of Jesus Christ were not only common working people, but some of the most eminent intellectuals of the day, such as Saul of Tarsus, who was...
Well, Saul of Tarsus is the person who recreated the Christian religion in his own vision and rewrote the scriptures in the first place.
Well,
he caught on to a
I'm sorry,
good
but
thing.
that's hardly historically accurate.
Well,
you know, I want
that's really interesting, because one Christian will tell us one thing and another will tell us
Christianity is fine.
What did they tell you?
Christianity is fine for people who have this great love for weaklings. Well, we don't have it, so why must we be forced to be a part of your love for all mankind?
Well, you certainly must not be forced. Nobody would force you to do anything. I guess
Can't you understand that?
I find it difficult to accept.
You really want us to put up a fight or put up an argument, but there's no...
Go help them.
I just wonder how you've been able to psychologically insulate yourself in such a way. I cannot. I mean, I have not always been a Christian. And long before I was a Christian, it was just a matter of human responsibility to another creature, though I may not have believed them to be a creature of God as I do now. If they were suffering and they were in pain and they were hurting, I reached out to them.
How much clearer do I have to make it? A strong animal does not spend all of their energy and time on earth helping every weak animal. You help those in your own pack, in your own tribe, those who are like you, and those who are not like you and who are not contributing to you, you do not have a responsibility to.
If you want it on simpler terms, you can say that we are of different species.
Let's get to an issue that Zeena raised a little earlier, and it's one that I know is a very sensitive one to you, and that is the issue of the allegations of human sacrifice. Now,
it's not that sensitive.
I will first of all go on record as being very clear in stating that my understanding the Church of Satan official ideology, the party line, is that we do not condone, we do not permit, we do not practice or encourage human sacrifice.
Correct.
Okay. What of those people who do read the Satanic Bible, who do hear your father's teachings, and then practice animal and or human sacrifice in his name?
Satanists. Just because you read a book doesn't make you that thing.
How many people have read the Holy Bible, misinterpreted it, and acted on it?
Do you know what John Wayne Gacy said to all of his victims
He read the
before they died?
23rd Psalm. Should we now say that John Wayne Gacy is a Christian murderer? It's a foolish, sweeping generalization.
Okay.
Anyone can read a book. Mark David Chapman, who killed John Lennon, read Catcher in the Rye. Should we ban Catcher in the Rye? Leopold and Loeb wrote Nietzsche. Let's ban Nietzsche. Where do you stop?
I think there is a serious issue in terms of artistic freedom of expression that you've raised. I also think one has to determine whether or not inherent in the language expressed, the deeds that result from it are philosophically consistent with it.
There are far more violent things written than the Satanic Bible. So you can't tell me that that was written in such a way to promote violence.
Oh, I'm not saying that it was. I'm just saying that it lends itself by the nature of the language used. Well, let's read it. Let's read it. Okay?
Let me quote something. Jesus said, I come not with peace, but with a sword. Now, if I'm a Christian and I say, well, I have a sword, I'm going to go kill non-Christians. It's a matter of interpretation. I would say...
No, that is absolutely philosophically inconsistent with the larger worldview of the teachings of Christ.
Just as it is with Satanism.
Well, okay.
Why blame the acts of a few nincompoops on a book?
We'll read from this book if you'd like, but let's read this book, all right?
Because this one's more interesting.
Mad dogs are destroyed. Okay? The fact remains, given the opportunity, they would destroy you. Therefore, you have every right to symbolically destroy them. And if your curse provokes their actual annihilation,
rejoice.
Rejoice that you have been instrumental in ridding the world of a pest. He is made to be trampled underfoot.
You love quoting that. I've heard you say that before.
Have you?
Yeah, you really say it with gusto.
You could be a really good Satanist.
You never know who's listening to you when you're on the radio. Well, but Zeena...
It was just that little snippet that someone played for me.
Zeena, you have every right to symbolically destroy them. I'm a writer.
Now wait,
I'm a writer and a journalist. I know the responsibilities of language. If your curse provokes their actual annihilation, in other words, you're only doing this symbolically, but if in doing this curse, putting the pins in the voodoo doll or whatever, if in fact they actually do die, rejoice.
Of course. Why is that inconsistent with our philosophy?
I'm asking you, Zeena, your father wrote this book.
Right. So what you're saying...
If the person actually dies as the result of the curse you put on them, rejoice. Believe
Well, what
me,
do you
I'm
think
trying
would
to be,
promote
I'm
a
trying
curse
to be,
like that?
give you the opportunity. If there's an out here and you don't mean that, fine, say so.
Of course we mean that. What do you want me to
Rejoice.
say? Oh, no, he didn't mean to write that. Of course. What do you think we would use a destruction ritual for?
It's to
If your
destroy,
wife is
obviously.
raped and murdered, and you don't know who did it, and you want to throw a random curse at whoever it was that did it, and if it works, shouldn't you be happy?
Or should you mourn the rapist, which I guess Christians mourn the people who kill them too? Because
What is
Christian,
it? I don't know. What
what
think?
response do you want from us?
Don't you
it
think
isn't a
that
question of response that I
ritual-
want for you. I'm
See,
just trying to...
I think you seem to have this idea that we toss around these destruction rituals right and left, that we do them every Friday night with
At
no
random,
regard.
we just go through the phone book and
Yeah,
and
we
pick
just
some.
pick people out with no regard for who they are. Don't you think there's a reason why we have that?
Sure, you feel
Okay.
that you've been wronged and have a right to get revenge.
And explain to me why that is wrong. Explain to me if it's
Well,
something that's so blatantly obvious.
The explanation is that when we allow every individual to become the arbiter of his own actions, the rule of thumb of his own conduct, and the determinate factor as to whether or not he is the wronger or the wrongee, then we have millions of individuals running around choosing their own courses of action.
You'll never have that. People
you
are
have,
too lazy to
in
decide
a society, we have a lot of very hurt, angry, dysfunctional, psychotic people who then in turn use this as an excuse for reprehensible action.
And they use Geraldo Rivera, too, as an excuse to kill their mother, because Geraldo Rivera brought Satanism
A
to them.
psychotic could look at TV Guide and find a motive for murder in it. It's really a moot point. You can read any book in the world and find an interpretation that you feel is valid to it.
Music. This is your album, Nicholas. It's called Radio Werewolf, The Fiery Summons. You're pretty good at marketing yourself.
That's the devil's place. Illusion and showmanship.
You mean the devil is alive and well in Madison Avenue?
Of course, advertising
I
is
think
the
you and I
devil's
agree with
trade.
that. You're a self-described satanic musician. You've heard his music, Zeena. What does it sound like? You tell me.
It's more along the lines of classical music. It would be the equivalent to, it is satanic gospel, I guess you could say. It would be the equivalent of what you have.
Except the word gospel means good news. In this case, it's
Good
bad
news to us.
It's good news.
Bad news for you.
What does the music do to you when you listen to his music? How does it affect you in a certain way? Is there something about the mood, the ambiance of this? What does it do to you?
Well, the music that, and I'm beginning to work with Nicholas on his music, we make music for a purpose. It's not just background music, or it's not just, you know, fluffy, light stuff.
This is not elevator satanic music.
It's ritualistic music. It is music that by even the act of listening to it, you are participating in a satanic ritual.
By listening to, so if I put this on and listen to it, I'm participating. But you're a listener. I'm asking you, how does it make you feel?
It's very stirring. It's very emotionally charged. You can't listen to this music and say you don't feel something, because you do. I'm sure you would probably feel either hate or fear or rage or something.
I
But
don't know, maybe he's a great musician. I just say the guy's very talented.
Right, but I would say that someone who would listen to it would probably feel very similarly to how one might feel if they're listening to classical music that is bombastic and emotionally charged.
Here's a song called Incubus, which is about sexual cohabitation with demons, a human being cohabiting with a spirit being.
Right. That's what it is. That's correct.
True.
So,
and
how does that make you feel?
Well, this is another form of
this is a woman
mythology.
cohabiting with a demon.
Right. There are succubuses, too, which
Does that
are the
make you want to
opposite.
do it, or what?
You really bring it down to the lowest
I'm asking
level.
you. He says it is ritual music that draws you
Well,
into its
that
intent.
particular
I'm asking
song,
a point-blank question.
that
Don't pass it
particular
on.
song is
Does
designed...
it make you want to do that, or what does it do? He's named it Incubus. What does it do?
It's very stimulating, of course.
It's designed for sexual
It's designed
arousal,
to sexually
of course,
stimulate.
Of course.
Prepare one for a cohabitation with a demon?
Well, I don't believe in demons. I'm using a mythological word, incubus. It's an archetype. It is a real force, but you believe in demons. I don't. You're talking about demons. I'm not.
Is this commercial music? Is this is it going to sell, or is it just Satanists who listen to this, or who's going to run out the record store and buy
Satanists
it?
listen to it, and people who respond to a satanic philosophy, whether they call themselves Satanists or not, listen to it. But it is not intended for the millions. Certainly not.
You mentioned King Diamond earlier. King Diamond is a member of the Church of Satan, correct? King Diamond is a metal musician, kind of thrash metal, black metal. How do you feel about the Metallicas and Slayers of the world?
Well, musically, I think I hate rock music. I think rock music's one of the most dangerous influences on young people in a long time.
Well, why is it dangerous?
It promotes self-destruction, which we're adamantly opposed to.
It promotes the use of drugs. It promotes a very conformist attitude, even though rock musicians and...
Under the guise of nonconformity.
Does it bother you, Zeena, that they're kind of using your symbols and your faith and ripping it off to get rich?
No, I wouldn't say it bothers me, because they're doing what they have to do.
It's a sign of the times, unfortunately, but it is...
But if it gets a kid into Satanism, hey, isn't that better for you?
It doesn't, though. No, it really doesn't.
It doesn't, because
it doesn't.
they don't
All it
have
does
a
is
clear
give
idea.
them a surface illusion, which really has nothing to do with Satanism. So it is of no value to us that these people utilize satanic imagery. If we had public record
excuse me, I
burnings...
don't understand why. Because it seems to me...
Because that isn't Satanism, what they're encouraging. Drug use, the whole heavy metal aesthetic.
What's getting them away from Christianity? Isn't that...
No, it really isn't. It really isn't, because these
and that
kids...
isn't better either.
No,
I mean,
just getting away from...
You're real ideological purists.
Absolutely. We're an elitist organization.
I mean, we feel that if people are happy being Christians, that they should stay that way. I'm not interested in driving people away from Christianity whatsoever.
If you want to be a Christian, you have every right to be a Christian. We don't want you to become a Satanist. We just want people who are already with us. We're not trying to convert or proselytize. And I think that has not been understood until this point.
You don't want to recruit. You don't want to convert.
There's only a limited amount of people in the world who can truly say they respond to the satanic philosophy or understand it. It isn't for the millions. It isn't for the masses. It is for the rulers and leaders of the earth. It's for people who achieve. That's 1% of humanity can achieve. Now, people are going to move away from Christianity in droves, and they are, but that doesn't mean they're all going to become Satanists.
You describe the Bible as an occult book.
Mm-hmm. Because...
You say you're not an occultist. Christians are.
Christians, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, believe in such concepts as birth by a virgin, angels and demons, the existence of eternal life, immortality. At the end of the world, corpses are going to rise out of the grave and become real again, depending on whether you're a tribulationist Christian or whatever denomination you are. The end of the world is a good thing.
As a Satanist, you know the dispensationalists and the pre-tribulationists and all that?
I wish I didn't know anything about them, but I'm forced to deal with them, so I know every kind of idiocy that is called Christianity. Exactly. It's an occult book. It is all about occultism. It's God is a spiritual creator in the sky. Christianity is occultism. Satanism says that these gods and belief systems that humanity needs and should have are archetypes, mythologies that make human beings behave a certain way. Everything is a fairy tale. Christ is a fairy tale as much as Satan. It depends on what archetype you choose.
Zeena, if this new satanic century truly does come into being, if your numbers increase in the Church of Satan, and as you would hope the numbers of Christians would decrease, and then suddenly you are the people of the new social order, describe to me what that social order would be like.
Well, I think it would take on its own momentum. We would have, what we would see is nature taking its course, because that's all we stand for, is to let nature dictate what our actions are, whether it's on a moment-to-moment level or a gut instinct level. And
Can
we
you be
would
more
have
specific? I mean, what about some of the laws? Would the laws of the land as they currently are
the
change
laws
any?
would probably become stricter, if anything.
Let's look at capital punishment, for instance. In a satanic society, a murderer wouldn't last a minute, because every individual would have the right to defend themselves then and there. Someone broke into your home.
Vigilantism? Go out and get the guy?
It's worked for thousands of years, and it should work again. If someone steals, cut their hand off, as they do in Saudi Arabia. That is a much more sane way of dealing with crime than the Christian way, which is to say, oh, you came from a bad background and we really love you, and here, go to jail and be rehabilitated, and then we'll let you out after you've read the Bible enough. I don't have mercy for criminals. I don't have mercy for people who cause strife, and they should be summarily executed and removed from society.
In talking with the two of you, there's not much lightness or humor.
That's because you're talking. That's because we're.
This is all really.
You're talking.
It's all very serious. There's kind of a fortress mentality about this.
If we were dragging you to be thrown to the lions, I don't think you'd see much lightness.
Look,
whether you are
to the lions, Zeena? Come on, now, have you been thrown to the lions?
Oh, I would say
Satanists all over the country are being.
Am I throwing you to the lions?
As much as this society that we live in now is, I'd say yes.
So what you're saying is not just necessarily me today, that you have a beleaguered stance.
See, you don't realize, from our point of view, we are under attack. We are being attacked.
Well, everyone should be attacking Satanists. What's wrong with that?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But you don't see from our point of view either how we are under attack and we are retaliating. This is our philosophy.
Do you think I want to come here to explain these things to you? We're being attacked every day by the media, by religious fanatics, and by people like you, even though you claim to be rational.
And we're constantly being called upon to
We have a lot of other
are.
things to talk about than say why we're not this and why we're not that, but you constantly attack us and slander us. If you're going to say the Satanic Bible is responsible for murder, then you're going to have many more Satanists coming out.
I don't see that as an attack, because I think that I have the right, as a journalist, to cite quotes that I think encourage
negative behavior. But we have the right to cite the Holy Bible, and you say, well, all these things aren't Christian.
No, I say that they are philosophically inconsistent with what is taught, that they are.
Well, I seem to see this double standard.
Why is there a double standard? Why? There's Jim Jones, the Spanish Inquisition,
because
all kinds of religious and holy wars.
Because it's very simple. Because this book says, turn the other cheek and love your neighbor.
It says so many things.
It also says, hate your neighbor and get even with that sucker.
That book also says.
Perform a destruction ritual on him.
That book also says that witches
That book says, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
That was the theocratic state of Israel.
Well, it's in that book. Why don't you take it out?
I'm not taking it out. That was a civil crime in a theocratic state.
Why are you still using
it had nothing to do with person-to-person. I'm talking person-to-person conduct here.
What about?
But people still read this.
I'm talking about the rules that govern interpersonal relationships, and those rules are love your neighbor, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. This book says, perform a destruction ritual, and if he's annihilated as the result, rejoice.
Right, it does.
Rejoice.
And what about the things in that book? In the Old Testament, it is filled with descriptions of pious religious people sacrificing goats to Jehovah, your God, not my God, but your God. How do you explain that? Why are you still using this primitive book about goat sacrifice, the proper way to wear your hat when you're in the desert? This has nothing to do with the modern society we live in.
Civil and ceremonial.
Well, why are you using? Look at it as a history book.
Culture.
What does it have to do with your culture?
The new covenant that Jesus Christ established through the cross. That is the message that we now bear. That
why?
Is the
Why are you? You are of European descent, I imagine. Why do you reject the beautiful and pure tradition of pagan heritage which you have in favor of an alien Eastern creed that came out of a desert that has nothing to do with the world you come from or live in? Why?
Well, the answer is very simple, that there is one God, and that paganism is an attempt of Satan to turn people from the true God.
What was it when your ancestors before Christ were pagans? What was it then?
Were
they sinners?
God always was.
Why didn't anyone hear about it?
They did hear about it. The invisible things of God are clearly seen from the creation of the world, the first chapter of Romans.
What about
tells
all
us.
your ancestors who were pagans?
Well,
are they sinners?
some of my ancestors probably were pagans because they were a product of that culture in its declension away from the worship of the true God.
Well, you are a product of Judeo-Christian culture, which has infiltrated Western society.
I'm also as you, the product of a personal decision as to whom I would yield my life to and what value systems I would choose to live by. I made that personal decision.
And your personal decision, you will admit, is not based on rationality, but faith in a book.
No, I will not admit that. It is based upon the height of rationality of God as a demonstrably intricate, loving, personal creator and designer of this universe.
Well, whether you like it or not, in the future, people are going to look at the Bible and put it on the shelf with Mother Goose's fairy tales and all the other wonderful books that human beings have created to give them some meaning, and it will just be looked at as another book. You have your belief system. It's based on a book written 2,000 years ago. As far as I'm concerned, it has no relevance.
And it was not written 2,000 years ago.
They've revised it. King James revised it, took out the parts he didn't like.
But there is the Old Testament that goes back with historical consistency far beyond that.
And that's the part that advocates animal sacrifice, is the Old Testament. Why didn't you throw that part out then? Why do you worship a book that advocates animal sacrifice?
As she used the word, the scapegoating was a foreshadowing of the ultimate sacrifice as Christ, our great high priest, came to offer himself as the final sacrifice for sin.
Well, there will come a day when people will look at this tape and hear what you're saying and say these were truly the Dark Ages, when an intelligent person like Bob Larson could advocate such insane ideas.
The idea that God would love us enough to give of himself for us. I don't consider that to be insane. I think it's the most beautiful idea on the face of this planet.
So Santa Claus is a nice idea too, but I wouldn't set up a church based on it.
But what it does is that it does for me what I could not do for myself. You see, as a Satanist, you can save yourself.
It makes you feel...
As a Christian, I cannot save myself.
Well, I'm telling you, what if I told you you're free? There is no God, there's no heaven or hell. Bob, you're free to do whatever you want to do. You're a fairly rational person. I trust you. You can dismiss all this nonsense and live your life now. You wouldn't go with that. You'd rather still...
Well, I would have to make both a decision of faith as well as a decision of my intellect to determine whether or not that was truly true. You see,
have you never doubted that this book, the Bible, may not be an accurate portrayal of the universe?
And I've doubted many times the veracity of what I personally believe. And like all people, I'm on my own pilgrimage to find what has theologically been called that ultimate ground of being, that ultimate truth. But as I continue, I'm continuing on a pathway paved by mercy and justice and goodness and love, not one paved by vengeance and hate and retribution, where the strong survive. Those are the two things that are antithetical.
Then. What you're talking about, love, mercy, forgiveness, peace, that's all theoretical. Not
if you're the recipient of it.
Not even any Christian is practicing that at this moment. Christians are cheating on their wives. Christians are killing each other. And the Bible and your church aren't going to change anything about that. Until you look at human nature realistically, you're never going to have a sane perspective on the world.
Finally, in a nutshell, your view of Christ and your view of Satan. So there's no misunderstanding to anyone as to what you truly believe about both. I'll let you go first and Zeena last. Christ and Satan.
Christ is a mythological figure, just as the Easter Bunny, Hercules, Zeus, the Tooth Fairy. And if you want to believe that Christ existed and was a historical personage, that is your right. However, I place no importance on Christ or the teachings of Christ, except that Judeo-Christianity as a whole has, in my view, been a very dangerous cult that has destroyed human potential for 2,000 years, and I oppose the idea of Christianity. I do not accept the religious validity of Christ, but I do believe it is a dangerous social system, and I am glad to see that it's finally decaying.
And Satan?
Satan, just as all the other mythological figures I named, is a figure that the human imagination has created as an archetype. If you've read Carl Jung, you know what an archetype is. An ideal. It's a type, a form, and it has no more valid existence than Christ. However, you can decide a lot about a person, whether they resonate to the archetype of the God of death, which is Christ, the God of self-sacrifice and surrender, the God of the meek and the weak, or Satan, who is traditionally the God of the strong, of the powerful, and of the leaders of the world.
Zeena, Christ and the devil.
Personally, I don't even give them the time that I think the average Christian does. I don't view Christ as anything more than just what Nicholas said, an archetype. Satan, it's clearly been stated that we use it in the representative and symbolic sense of meaning the adversary, or the opposed, or the one to question, or the rebel, traditionally. And any anthropomorphic form that Satan may hold, you would be more likely to find in something that's right around us. A physical object, maybe a car. Or
no
maybe
God, no devil, just us. That's
It's up
what
to
you
you.
Just us as
that's
animals.
what it boils down
That's
to,
it.
yeah.
We live in a cosmos that is created by nature, comes from nature, and shall return to nature. There's no judge above us or below us.
You may be stunned by what you just saw. It's shocking to hear anyone, even Satanists, calmly discount love, compassion, and moral decency. Don't comfort yourself thinking the ideas of LaVey and Schreck are pretentious. They meant every word they said. Satanism is not the stuff of Gothic horror novels. It's an active ideology dedicated to the subversion of values we hold dear. Satanism can and does affect you. Satanic crimes are increasing. We've recently learned that international drug dealers look to black magic for assistance. And far too many teenagers are drawn to devil worship because their lives are devoid of love and meaning. Combating such incredible evil is not the job of politicians, policemen, or theologians. That responsibility belongs to you and me. The Bible tells us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. If you and I will be instruments of God's good wherever we go, the evil agenda of Satanism will be defeated. Be comforted by the words of 1 John 3:8. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. If your faith is weak, now is a good time to reconsider what you think about God, Satan, and the origin of evil. If I can help you, don't hesitate to write me. You'll find the address on this video. Thank you again for taking time to watch the first family of Satanism. This is Bob Larson.
Formulated and organized into a productive social force that takes or accepts the premise that man is not a creature to be redeemed, but one who must recognize within himself his own potential, his own liabilities, and deal with them accordingly. We feel, as Nietzsche felt when he obviously wrote Also sprach Thales. The opinion is that man can no longer fall back on established religion as
a sort of identity, a collective identity. And occultism is a sort of do-it-yourself God kit, in whatever form it takes, oriented towards personal power. As a result of this, those who could be accepted collectively simply by being Christians at one time, for example, now find that with automation, with advances in technology, that their roles as human beings are lessened a great deal, are much less viable than ever before.
As a police photographer, I came upon scenes that were exactly the sort of thing that Hollywood would have liked to have shown, but obviously had to stop in time. And it was almost as though censorship or the Hays office had been canceled out completely, and I was allowed to see the follow-up, the all too brutalizing, all too grisly follow-up of these situations. I saw a slice of life that very few people see on a regular basis. I saw the effects of mayhem from spouse to spouse, children splattered by hit-run drivers, best friends killed, a rage, fit of anger, and I saw many what would otherwise be considered domestic situations become very undomestic. I saw people who had, in just one moment of wrong decision, put bullets through their brains. I saw people walking their dogs very tranquilly suddenly get an impulse to kill themselves. I saw people that had jumped off cliffs because it happened to be a holiday like Christmas or New Year's. The depression just got too great. I saw the effects of people that had been immersed in water, bloated, eaten away by shellfish in a manner that they themselves, if they were suicides especially, would never have wanted anyone to see them. And I realized that death is certainly not a flattering thing. And it made me aware that it is really the only equalizer. I have a painting that shows a little frog looking at all of these skulls in a field, and some of them have crowns, some of them have Indian war bonnets, some of them have high silk hats, and the name of the painting is, the title of the painting is Equality. And to me, that's the closest thing we can come to equality. And not attempting to be too philosophical, I will say that even in death, there is not equality, though, because some people make better looking corpses than others. Is a good whipping. I haven't come forth in a great many years because I didn't want to be relegated to another guest on a TV talk show. But I can assure you, Satanism is here to stay. Satan can take the form of a beautiful woman. Satan can take the form of a sleek animal. An automobile can be very satanic. These things can be anthropomorphized into Satan. Well, when I was a teenager, I was interested in the occult. And the occult in those days meant you got dream books and you got books on fortune telling and all that sort of thing. And the closest thing there was to anything about calling up spirits or demons and that sort of thing was a lot of gobbledygook where you stood around in a circle and you used the protective names of Jehovah and Jesus and all that. And I tried it. Oh, Lord knows I tried it, but it didn't work. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to call up any demons, if I'm going to get any magical power, if I'm going to get anything going my way, I better get on the side of those guys instead of protecting myself from them. I love life very much, and it's been said that I can't possibly love life, that I'm a very unhappy man, or must be a very unhappy man. And I would say that I'm a very happy man, an extremely happy man, in a compulsively unhappy world. The Church of Satan would have nothing to do with something like breeders or abductions of children or stealing of animals or that sort of thing, because again, the question why certainly isn't very satanic to want to take anything against its will. Sex goddesses of the past have been largely as a result of luck more than anything else. However, in the case of Jane Mansfield, she was an active member of the Church of Satan, and certainly under tragic circumstances left the Church of Satan. In the situation concerning Miss Monroe, that was a long, long time ago, long before the Church of Satan. However, she did have an unswerving interest in the dark side of life, and I think that was one of the main reasons that we managed to hit it off the way we did. To the detractors or the accusers or the people of the other side that would say that Satanists would like to kill animals, sacrifice animals, I would say that they would make ideal human sacrifices. I love animals. I've always been part of animals. Animals are part of me. I believe that all churches of all denominations should be taxed to the hilt. If churches were taxed as any other business, because that's what they are, simply businesses, if they were taxed, the national debt would be wiped out overnight.